listen, Chris, I know that everybody in the industry knows who you are, and I'm sure you're aware of your presence. But my objective today was to figure out like where it all started. You know, like a lot of people know who you are. I think that our industry has celebrities for sure. Just like every, you know, the NFL, NBA, NHL. I know some of those players and I can see their stats, but I simply don't know, you know, what made Kobe Kobe or LeBron LeBron or things of that nature. So when we did this, I host a conference in Austin, you know, because I invite you every year and you're never able to make it, which I don't get offended by. I'll just keep knocking until you finally break down. But the conference, you know, we did it not because the industry needed another conference. We just felt like it needed something a little bit different, right? So the only complaints that I would get at the end of these conferences, not the only, I would get 3 of them, but 2 of them were consistent every year. One was that there wasn't enough of them. And the second one was that people just didn't get an opportunity to hear more from that person. So rather than go make more conferences, I felt it was time to, you know, create this revolutional podcast, I hoped, to where people can go and scratch the paint. So I think everybody is aware your team has an amazing omnipresence online. So we could track on a daily basis what you guys are doing. But I mean, a lot of things happen long before those days too. So, you know, my goal is to try to help everybody understand a little bit more about your background, because there may be someone else that's graduating from UT right now that one day wants to be, you know, the CEO of this mega data center company. So to that end, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody that's listening?
Yeah, so Chris Crosby with Compass Datacenters. So introduce myself. Let's see, we met in 2011.
So someone was asking me how long I knew you. I'm like, well, I've known
2011?
Chris forever. I go, but I don't know if I could say I really know you, but I think I met you when I was at HP.
Yeah, you were at HP.
UIP, and you gave us a shot. I sat down with you. I don't even know if you had Forrester yet, right? So
No, I didn't.
it was early days, and
It's me and Curtis, and
yep,
yeah,
awesome dude, right? And I think that you were trying to I mean, your whole product is this very standardized, consistent thing that you do, and at the time you were still stacking up all your partners, you know, and I think you get to the very end of everything that everybody already picks. Sometimes the last one they pick is the commissioning agent. So we were trying to sell you some commissioning, I think.
that's right. I think you did the first few jobs.
Yeah. So, I mean, Chris, where are you from?
So originally I was born in Connecticut.
What part?
Norwalk, so suburb of New York City. My dad was ended up with Monsanto. I came about, he was a grunt in Vietnam. So I came about after Nixon brought home some of the boys. And so he spent a year over 6 months in the Delta, 6 months in the jungle.
So he was drafted for a year?
He was drafted, spent a year in boot camp, then went on tour.
No kidding.
Yeah, he was first sergeant, my hero, tons of bronze stars.
Really?
Yeah. So anyway, so it's how, his family grew up in Greenwich, and nice area. They were on the poor side. The Crosby family used to be pretty wealthy, and then they lost it all in the Great Depression.
Oh, so, really?
He grew up in the maiden butler's quarters and that little house. And so anyway, so he, Monsanto Corp moved to St. Louis for a couple of years. So kind of first and second grade, lived in Baldwin, Missouri, and then moved to Plano, Texas in third grade, 1980.
No kidding.
During the heat wave of 1980.
What was it like going, well, I guess you're third grade, so you know the big difference, I guess, between Missouri and Texas by then. I mean, summers are completely different, I'm sure, right?
Well, I don't know. Missouri was just really, really cold in the winter and really, really hot in the summer. So at least Texas, you know, you got a mild winter.
So were you happy to move to Texas?
Yeah, it was awesome. Plano was this microcosm of a city. I mean, I still got so many benefits out of it. It was country back then. And, you know, but it was all people that moved to Dallas and, you know, every walk of life, you know, race, color, creed, whatever. And we all were just suburban kids that had earned our desk for nuclear bombs from Russia, you know. So everybody got along really well.
So by then, though, I mean, like a lot of big things have also happened in Dallas. Like this is after Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas as an example. I mean, what time frame was this? This was...
So in the 80s.
Okay.
You know, I mean, we were...
Dallas. It was a TV show still by then.
Yeah. Out in South Fork, yeah. But no, it was awesome. I mean, we grew up, it was this big sports town. You know, it was a great school district. And like I said, you know, we just kind of grew up in a bubble where everybody just got along. I mean, you just all played. And
What brought your family to Texas?
Monsanto.
Same company?
Then they wanted him to move again, and then he said no, so he went into small business and worked in the pool business for there because we were so happy in Texas. So
I gotcha.
And then I went to.
You have any brothers or sisters?
I have a little sister. Yeah.
How much younger?
She's a couple of years, and she is in advertising. She runs creative for Fleischmann Hilliard globally, so she's awesome.
Cool.
Used to have her do all my art projects as a kid.
Oh, nice.
So
if she's only 2 years, you guys went to high school together for a few years, it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then when you went to high school in Plano, I guess?
Plano East Side.
So even then, they had...
We graduated 1,000 people.
Was that a big school in Texas back then?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as big as Plano. What's now? So Plano Senior was bigger. I think it was 2x our size, but yeah, it was crazy. But
was it cool?
Oh, it was fun.
Did you do any sports or anything?
Yeah, I played every sport, and then was a late bloomer. Took up tennis because I was tired of getting benched.
Sure. What year did you pick that up? Like, were you in high school?
No, I was probably 12, 13.
You any good at it?
Yeah, I was good.
You still play?
No, my highlighted tennis was played in the Open in 1990
Really?
with my sister in mixed. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Used to be a junior division there, so that was kind of fun.
You ever bump shoulders with any of the Hall of Famers? Or?
Yeah, it was my highlight of my tennis career, coming out of the locker room, seeing Gabrielle Sabatini walking back in. So
was that cool? Where was that at? Where was the U.S. Open? Is that in New York every year or something?
Yeah, Flushing Meadow.
That'd be cool.
But no, and then it was a burnout. I didn't want to play, and then came down here. I grew about a foot between my senior year and high school to
you
college.
Were
so
a late bloomer then.
I was just skinny, but love sports. So these intramural fields that are over a block away, spent a lot of time at those. A lot of time at Gregory Gym playing ball.
So you went from graduating high school, Plano East, you said, and then you, when you applied to UT, I mean, what was you want to be in finance? Was it?
It was computer science.
Computer science.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yep, did computer science. I think my decision criteria was, I mean, I liked computers. I've had them. I think my dad got me a PC Junior, was the first computer we ever got when I was in high school. Always liked, messing around on computers, and so went computer science because it said it paid a lot when you graduated. So,
okay, but did you have a genuine passion and interest in that stuff? It sounds like you always.
I also looked at military academy. I was colorblind, so disqualified. But
which academy? Just curious.
Naval.
Attaboy. So, I was like, just don't say Air Force Academy.
No.
My dad was a pilot in the Air Force.
Long runways.
I know. I have a brother that was an aviator too, but he's Army, and he would send things to the family chat sometimes. B-52s have 20,000 engines or 12 engines or whatever for real, but you could lose half of them and still land, no problem.
Flying Fortress, right?
Yeah. So when why did you pick UT? Just curious. Versus you're up there. A&M, was it a big tech
There's no
school?
way I was going to be an Aggie.
Ooh, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you came down here. You looked at academy, colorblind thing, and then you said, I'm going to go into computer science because you can make a lot of money. And then when you were down in Austin, when did things start? When you graduated, by then, did you already kind of know what you were getting into?
Just came in with a bunch of hours. I think I had 45 hours coming into school from AP tests and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. That's a whole year, right?
Found a lot of love in poker games and pool halls. And
in Austin?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to graduate?
I graduated in the fall of '93, so.
Were they a big powerhouse in football then too?
So 1990 was that was when we got smoked by Miami in the Cotton Bowl.
Okay.
Smoked, we were number 3, and we just got.
Were there any who were the big players that went on to the NFL from when you were playing or when you were at school there?
So Stanley Richards was safety, played for the Chargers for a long time. Would have been. There was a few guys that played. One of the, but that was the Gardere kind of quarterback era.
So was it always a good school for football back then, or was it?
Yeah, Texas has been a good school for a long time. Well, we've been overrated for a long time here lately, but we've had our ups and downs.
Well, I moved here in 2004, right?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Well, look,
perfect time frame.
I was
Had
like,
the
listen,
Powerhouse program.
they were killing it, right? Vince Young. I mean, like,
Yeah.
Mac Brown was still the coach.
I still like to argue with the Alabama folks that if Colt didn't get hurt.
Oh, for sure.
So, but
I
no,
would imagine that was probably a really painful game to
there.
watch.
It was
You were
awesome
there.
game. It was an awesome game.
So,
So did computer science, worked at computer labs, and dabbled in hacking, dabbled in all kinds of stuff like that.
really?
Then got my co-op. I got a co-op job that kind of set me on the right path, and I co-opted with Bell Northern Research, which was the R&D arm for Northern Telecom, Nortel. Which no
Where
longer
were they
exists.
based out of?
In Richardson, up in Dallas area.
Oh, okay, so you got a job back up there. Is that what you want to do? Do you want to go back up there, to Dallas?
Yeah. I mean, I looked at other places. I remember interviewing with Sprint and we were in downtown Kansas City, and the wind started whipping in November down those tunnel paths in between the skyscrapers. I was bitching about it the whole time. The HR lady goes, "Do I even need to put an offer in front of you?" I said, "No, you don't. You don't need to put an offer."
Wow.
So I had a great time at Nortel. It was, I spent 5 years in R&D and 4 years in on the commercial side, kind of 9 different jobs over that time frame. Everything from member of scientific staff in the first job to management to went into sales engineering, sales. So
What do you think you learned the most from that stop?
you learn a lot. I got to observe growth. I got to see a business unit go from 0 to $1 billion.
They were really that small then?
Yeah. Well, a business unit.
Oh, okay.
So on the international switching side, and I got a lot of exposure, international travel. I think my first international trip, I was 22 and I went to India, to Bangalore. So travel and history, that's the way you solve all the problems of the world. If people can travel and people understand history, they shut up about a lot more stuff. But
what was it like for your first trip? Because
it's terrifying. It was awesome. Well, let me start with the awesome. So somehow they were flying us. These are back in the heydays of telecom. Okay, so I fly first class on Lufthansa from DFW to Frankfurt, and they have it's in the nose cone of the 747, and they pop a keg up at the front of the thing, a little keg, and I wasn't going to miss a thing on this flight. Like there's more class, there's all this stuff.
The plane doesn't land.
This is all pre 9/11 too.
Sure.
So it was crazy. Stayed up the whole time, then flew from Frankfurt to my ticket said Bombay, but it was Mumbai. They changed the name at that point in time. And so flew from there, and then was in a middle business class seat. So four business class seats, smoking back then on the flight. One guy's chain smoking beside me. The other guy had the worst body odor you could imagine. So I was trying to inhale all the cigarette I could.
Too funny.
And then landed there. So I didn't sleep that whole time. So now I haven't slept at all. We get to India, and if the British invented bureaucracy, the Indians perfected it. Because you could get a stamp for a stamp for a stamp, on your passport. You go through all these different stations. And we had to get our luggage to transfer from the international airport to the domestic airport. And so I get my luggage, walk outside, and there's so many people. I've never seen so many people. And I'm supposed to get on and find a bus, a Lufthansa bus.
How old are you by this time?
I'm like 21, 22 years old.
Awesome. Perfect time to be completely caught in the wind.
And I had a ton of Indian friends from, grade school on up. But I don't know, whatever bias I had in my head, I was like, oh, it must be English as a second language to have the so I didn't know that at that age, I didn't know that most Indians spoke English, at least in the big cities. So it's pretty fun. Do you know the way to the airport?
Around.
Yeah. But then we go there, you drive through the slums, you're just like not in Kansas anymore. Mm-hmm. And then the airport was closed. So we had to wait we got there like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then we had to wait for a 6 a.m. flight.
Were there only so many flights that were coming in and out a day or something?
There's mosquitoes the size of cars that are slamming. So I sat next to that chain smoker who probably owned a sweatshop, and he was an Italian guy making clothing. So God only knows what he did. But then went to Bangalore. It was wild.
What was that? What were you guys
I was setting up a lab for Nortel.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So anyways, it was a great experience, and been blessed to be able to travel South America, all through Europe, all through Asia. So you get to learn a lot with different cultures if you don't make many assumptions anymore.
Sure. I haven't been. I mean, I think I was doing the math. It's probably not as much as you, but I was like, I think I've been over 20 something countries.
Yeah.
And I've never been to Asia, not a single spot, right? But not that I wouldn't want to go, but
Yeah.
I just, obviously we live in a completely different time now in which just being able to travel internationally isn't quite as simple as it used to be, just
Right.
even from an overall safety awareness, let alone what the regulations are to get in and out of these countries. But I know how exciting it is to travel. So you've been at that company just a few years, it sounds like, and you stayed there for, it seems like, what, 9 years, you said?
Yeah.
And in that time, did you, like, you sounds like you played a couple different roles and got to kind of evolve?
Yeah, I got to do all different things. Always like to learn, try new things. You know, I guess the same disease that would get somebody to go in a covered wagon and go out west, or get in a boat to go to the New World kind of thing. You know,
Just explore.
Just always want to go to try new different things. So, yeah.
What
So
made you leave?
well, the writing was on the wall that the telecom bubble was coming to a pop. I mean, we just sold all this gear, right? You kill it on your numbers, and the gear's supposed to be upgradable forever. And, you know, these networks were getting built. These were the first, you know, the big fiber optic networks for guys like Level 3 or World's Comms or, you know, all of these different groups. And yet you were supposed to sell 3x that quota in the next year. So kind of wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So left there, tried my hand at, I decided to try something completely brand new. So 2001, had left in February after I got my commission checks, and decided to become an investment banker. Didn't do that.
Interesting.
So I just did middle market investment banking. 2001 was not a good year for that. I don't know, there's a little thing that happened in September of that year. And then I called one of my ex-customers from Nortel, Jim Trout, and said, "Hey, Jim, you're working with that Carlisle group on One Wilshire building, and you don't know anything about telecom. Do you need a sales and marketing plan type of thing?"
Oh, wow. Now, is this the same guy that started Vantage?
Yeah.
Okay, so where was he at the time?
So it was called CRG West. It's now CoreSite.
Wow. Okay, so he was there, and you were, so because he was a customer, that's how you knew him, and
So I knew
that's
him.
how you
So
got
I
into
did
space.
I had my daughter in April of that year. 9/11 had hit. I'd had no income, and it was like, wow, I'm gonna, you know, how am I gonna pay the mortgage kind of thing.
Sure.
And
How did you get into that though? Did you have another friend that was on the banking side that said, "Hey, look"?
no, I
Okay.
just called and.
So if you have a computer science degree from UT, your backup plan is to get into investment banking, though.
I just wanted to learn it.
No, I could see the massive value in it, right? But like
I didn't know what it was. I mean, it turns out middle market investment banking is kind of like introducing people together. It's not the same thing as, you know.
So was he your first client?
No. So I just called him. I quit the investment banking, and I'm like, I got to do something else. So I asked him I said, "Do you want a sales and marketing plan?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Well, how much would you charge me?" I said, "I don't know, like 80 grand. And he goes, "Done." And I said, "Crap. I should have said no." And then I had one of my old employees, Steve Yo, help me with actually doing the marketing plan. I learned what the consulting business was about at that point. But worked there about a year, and then got it was a little mouthy. I mouthed off to Rob Stuckey in a meeting, who's still in charge of all Carlisle's real estate groups.
Oh, really?
And told him I disagreed in 28, 29-year-old terms.
Okay.
And he said, "We'll see you guys later." So Tom Ray and them, and I left there. And then that was the advent of digital. So Jim left, I left, and we started a little business called Porphyrion. I met Rick Magnuson and Mike Faust at the TRW building in LA and said, "Hey, look, we increased the NOI from, I think it was 12 million to 14.1 million during the year that was there at One Wilshire. You guys have this brand new fund, 525 million, which was huge at the time, to go buy distressed assets. And I know where those assets are from my telecom days. And look, we've done this once, we'll do it here." And so that was the start of what became Digital Realty.
So this is an interesting part of the story because in one of my first hunting trips with Jim Smith, we went through like a bottle and a half of Widow Jane one night, and I was asking him his story, right? Same thing that we're doing here, kind of. So I'll get his perspective because it obviously dovetails in. I'm like, well, when did you meet Chris? And he has his part of the story too. But for you, did you know Faust already?
So they had toured our building. They had toured One Wilshire to buy it, and that was how we met. If you will.
Coresight owned One Wilshire originally.
Well, CRG West, Carlisle Realty Group West, was owned as part of a fund. They had that building in Market Post Tower in San Jose. Gotcha. And then 470 Vanderbilt in Brooklyn. And so we focused on those two assets and did meet-me room expansions. And
what did you have to say to get these guys to say, we have this $500 million fund and we'll park it towards you guys to do this?
Well, they didn't park it towards us. We just said we'll be an operating arm. Like we'll help do all the leasing. We'll do all
gotcha.
the help with the business, the marketing, setting up meet-me rooms, doing all that sort of stuff. So as an operating partner for the fund.
I gotcha.
And the goal was to do that for multiple funds. So Jim was off trying to find other groups, and I was handling that account, or just working on it. So the first building was 2323 Bryan in downtown Dallas.
Okay.
And then we had 36 Northeast Second in Miami, and then it just kept growing. So from 2323 Bryan, that was the advent of Digital Realty. So
could we go deeper into that? Because I'm fascinated by that whole part of the story, because for some reason I thought it was explained to me once. It was like 5 of you all came together and you came from an investment banker, but I guess part of the narrative is semi-right, it sounds like. I didn't understand that Carlisle element to it, it sounds like.
So Carlisle wasn't involved, but it was, so the investment, the fund, Rick did, was $500 million from CalPERS and $25 million from CB Richard Ellis Investors. And Rick and Mike were kind of like in-house at CB REI at the time. And so they had this brand new fund, and, that was Chris Kenny was there.
Who were some of the other original OGs that started that stuff with you? Because there's a lot of, like yourself, right? A lot of CEOs in the industry now that had at least at one point, they had been there. They'd done a pit stop at Digital, if not more.
Yeah, so after those three guys, then a little later came, John Paulson came on board, Scott Peterson, Bill Stein came on as we were doing the IPO, as we started that process in 2004.
As like the CFO, or?
As like a CFO gun for hire is how it started. But yeah, everything from the logo.
How many of you day one, minute one, was it just 3, 4, 5, 6 of you?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then was it
when we took it public, I think 19 of the first 24 were Porphyrion. We kept putting people on our payroll.
Sure.
It was still touch and go. Like Rick came up with the idea to take it public and buy some more assets in April. Took us through, we went public at the end of October that year, 2004. And it was touch and go. It was, we're doing these banker meetings and investor meetings, and who are your clients again?
And they didn't understand the asset at all, probably.
Well, it's Quest and Savis and did these no credit. And so there was a lot of explaining, and then I had to work on all the IRS regulations for what was good income. Can we get rent on things like generators and,
So that's really early Genesis stuff. You guys who were you able to, I guess, this is after the Exodus days, but who did you get to go, who was in orbit with you all as you guys were all kind of going through this together? Not just.
So it was funny. It was back in those days. So I met Furlong when he was at Exodus.
Okay.
Let's see some other folks. So, it was original days. Manos was at Microsoft. Kava was still, starting that Raging Wire deal.
Oh, really? I didn't know that's where he came from.
Sacramento, yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of accidental things in terms of how this infrastructure stuff got built and how it got done. And of ability, passion, and opportunity, opportunity won out. There's this period, I'm like Jim Smith as a good example. So Jim was hired as he was doing due diligence on 600 West 7th in LA for us, because that was a Carrier Hotel asset. We're trying to buy it for pennies on the dollar.
But was he a broker? He was a consultant?
No, he was broke ass student coming back from London Business School
Right.
and needed a job. And so I hired him as the first sales engineer.
How did you find him?
Mike actually found him. So he was a old Colo.com guy, and somehow he was hired as a consultant at some point. And but yeah, he was the first sales engineer at Digital.
Sales engineer, and then he ultimately became like the CTO or something?
Yeah. No, he did all kinds of stuff, but it's a great journey. I mean, so many folks, Shap we acquired in a cube at the Sterling Network Services building in Phoenix.
Oh, that's right.
Dorico, hired him away from GE. He was selling stuff in India.
Really? I was wondering how you...
Bierman I knew from my Nortel days. We were both sales engineers at Nortel together.
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the right confluence of events, right, that happened. And, it was funny in those early days, like you really couldn't make wrong decisions, right? You things just, everything turned to gold in that business, right? It's a lot different now, a lot more mature now, but, it was just an awesome time to be there.
So what was it like now? I mean, I asked this with envy, obviously, because I started a company, as you know, and I'm waiting for everything just happens. It's amazing. I'm waiting for that phase. I haven't hit that phase yet. So
it's tough, man. It's a tough haul. I mean, doing Compass from start, right? So I started at the end of 11 and, it's really two businesses. I rebooted it in 2015, 16. And everything always takes longer than what the optimist and the entrepreneur thinks. And that's okay, because we don't get up every day because we think things are going to be bad. We get up every day because things are going to be great. And that's what people run through walls for. I think that but things take time. And, some of the things that we do, were a little, I guess I didn't think they were out there, but they were a little out there, doing single client stuff and large campuses and, the standardization that we do, the level of modular construction and things like that. They're now in vogue. People talk a lot of talking points about now no water, right? Right.
So those are things that I definitely wanted to scratch the pain with you on, because there was a lot of things that I saw you speak about. Like I saw you speak at various conferences. There was one conference, probably the first time I saw you speak was at maybe a smaller show like a DCD Dallas or something like that. And I remember there happened to be like a desk or a table of some kind there, and they had a podium and all this and chairs. And you're like, hey, look, I'm just going to go sit on the desk right here. And you just started pouring all that stuff into it. You were sitting on the desk just having a conversation with people versus standing behind the podium or on the chairs with the other speakers. And you were like, look, I think that at the end of the day, you have to stop and look at yourself and say, hey, look, we've been moving so fast that, you're not able to kind of stop and pivot. And you were like, I think it's not time to do more. Now it's time to do better. And you were talking about all these means and methods that you guys were rolling out at that time. And I don't know how many assets you had going first, right? But let's go back to the digital stuff a little bit more and then dovetail into that, because was there anything else about the digital side that because you were there? I mean, when I got in the industry, digital was Starbucks. I mean, you didn't really know who 2 and 3 and 4 was. And you probably had to add them all up together anyway to kind of reach where that group, which I think you were the quarterback of, they were just rolling at a different altitude altogether. And then it
was awesome. We had great people, great teams. It was really fun. We did kind of coining, you talk about coining phrases. So when I first called it wholesale data center, I remember Mike hated it because wholesale was like Costco versus Safeway kind of thing. But
that resonated, huh?
Yeah, that resonated with the market, calling
so
it
you
wholesale.
Just have to educate them.
Well, what happened was, so Urs at Google had come up with a metric around per KW. And so because it made more sense. Everybody was per square foot back in those days, and it made more sense. And so I took it and then pushed it into the pricing model. And boy, that was not easy to do because it was all per rack and breaker amp kind of retail style or per square foot leasing.
Did you make a conscious decision to stay away from the retail side?
Yes.
Back in those days? Why was that? Just too much brain damage with, too many.
The problem with being a computer scientist and having done a lot of software and managed services and all that sort of stuff is it's a deep and wide pool of people that do it. It's a hard place to be. As soon as I saw what asset businesses were and the return on and of capital, I was like, I want to do that. Yes, I have to use other people's money, but this is cool. Real
Did you
assets.
see the industry evolving to where it's at now, 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Did you have any inclination, even back in those early days, that, I was talking to someone on a podcast just recently, and we were talking about, I'm like, do you remember when 6 megawatt deals were big? Not saying that they're not anymore, but they're, there are groups that can kind of pick their teeth with those ones now because they're putting up 30 to plus, 60 megs at a click or more.
Yeah.
So when you were doing this, how much of the stuff that you were trying to analyze and interpret yourself in the earlier days were you seeing any accuracy on in your
I think
forecast?
the big thing, the switch back in 18, the end of 17 to 18 from 40 gig, when that ticked up and you could hang so much more off of a network node that you needed more capacity, that was when you saw us pivot to doing very large campuses.
Really?
As
So
soon
it was
as
the
you saw
network that
that,
swung
it's
it.
the network that swings it. Man, there's really 3 flows in life, right? There's the flow of electricity, it's the flow of bits, and the flow of water. That drives the world.
I think that may actually have been what you were talking about. I don't know if you called it the third utility, but there was some sort of narrative around there that you were parked on back then.
Yeah.
And you were trying to push it out. Right?
And it's true. I mean, if you look at what it takes to entitle, put a substation in, whatever, these sites are going to be there forever, and they're going to get refreshed, sure, but the data centers are data centers, and when you do them well, you think about it as a 100-year asset. How many 3 refreshes worth of the big iron on it, and you got refreshes on the inside every 3 to 5 years. I mean, it's a long-term asset. That's why we build concrete buildings. We really think about it in that fashion. That's why the equipment's on the outside. Don't try to maximize sites and optimize sites. Really try to think about it as how does this thing look over time?
So what would you do back then in the early days when there wasn't, like now there's a lot of history, where you could look back and you could kind of dot out the evolution of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Wild Wild West back in those days, right? So there was...
Yeah, so like the turnkey data center, that was Jim and I. We would sit in these meetings. So Jim was a chemical engineer. I was a computer scientist. And we'd sit in the meetings and they'd either say, why do you do this? Well, that's what we've always done. Or why do you do this? Well, that's what our competitors do. So if they didn't have a good answer, we cut it. And that was how the turnkey data center came about. And then I brought in some of the supply chain stuff of trying to match the most common size. So most common generator, 2 meg.
So that nothing had to be customized. It was off the shelf.
Yeah. So that was the genesis of the turnkey. But we did mostly brownfield at Digital back in the early days. So 7 and 8 was 2007. I think there's a $750 million in construction. 2008 was $1 billion in construction. A lot of it was brownfield.
2008, you guys were doing $1 billion back then, huh?
And
That's
then
amazing.
And then you had a scenario where I never got to focus on the building because it was going so fast. And then also saw getting to practice at Digital. So I got to see the growth at Nortel, practice it at Digital, and now this is kind of Rev 3 at Compass is, there's a lot of things that I wanted to work on. And a lot of it was around the building and the building fabric itself. And so that's what was the genesis of Compass, was to go in greenfield and de novo and really design the entire product from soup to nuts. Really think about the layout, think about the operations, think about that, and take in all those years of clients. Yes, it was the wholesale model. Yes, it was a multi-tenant data center, got created as a result of it, but was that really what they wanted?
That was probably one of the things you were like, I think you quoted Henry Ford, like if Henry Ford listened to his clients, he would have given his clients bigger horses,
right.
I think is the quote you used.
Yeah.
So going back, what was the culture like? What were you had your finger on that, right? So like as I'm guessing, were you guys in Fort Embarcadero back then? Or, we went from the small thing that's just kind of patching together.
So we started at Digital?
Yeah.
So we started the first offices right after IPO. We had at 200 Paul.
Okay.
And then we did our first team meeting at the Latham Watkins office in the conference room with everybody there.
Was it nice?
But yeah. But I mean, it was like literally, we were touch and go on the IPO right up until the day of. And it was like, what's going to happen if we don't IPO? We'd spent all this time and effort. So we priced a couple bucks under per share. If you invested at that point in time and held it, you did really, really well.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, your dividends alone would be paying out, every time. So it was cool. I mean, it was so fun. So I had the technical background and international experience and that sort of stuff. And so we just kept growing that team. So ops and sales and marketing and construction, and it was just fun. And then,
and you were literally going global, right? Mm-hmm. So were you traveling back to India in those days? Or?
So it started with Europe. So
which parts, like London or Slough?
Yeah, London. Deals in London, deals in Ireland, Dublin.
I got you.
A lot of the places where some of these first things were, it's kind of funny how some of them have still continued. So all over. And Mark Lamborn back then was helping pick land sites everywhere. And then at the twilight of things, I had a huge adjustment for me was my daughter. She drew a picture, and it was Mom, Zach, her little brother, and her in a house and an airplane with a guy waving. So I would travel constantly.
Sure.
Was gone all the time, worked all the time. And so that was pretty impactful for what am I doing?
So when you decided to go do Compass, well, I remember there was, I don't know what you guys called it. It was you said Flex Turnkey or something like that, but you guys...
Truly Modular, I think, was the first thing we used.
There was a code name for like the modular approach. Yeah. And someone once told me that the genesis behind that was you already had like leases for capacity in Northern California, and then there was some sort of like air study or something that triggered something, and you're like, we have to get really creative and start building stuff in parallel. So why are we shipping everything?
Oh, got it. Yeah, so the genesis of the skid...
Because that was the first part, right?
the skid was still at Digital. So what happened on that was we did a job in Northern Virginia in 16 weeks for Morgan Stanley at the time, I think. And it was crazy. And all I know is I observed just the trades working over the top of one another. So everybody's working in the same rooms. So I sat down. It was at a 7x24 with Larry Beltramo. Mazzetti was there, I think, and sat down a little like this, and I said to Larry, I said, we got to figure out a better way to do this. How do we move this whole electrical room off-site? And that was the genesis of on a little napkin. That was the genesis of the skid.
No kidding.
And so that first patent is still out there, and that skid concept, evolved, and then I took it to. When I started Compass, really to the next level of things, which was, how do I get to where I can always refresh? And the way to do that is to move to the external. If I have power rooms now that are full power rooms, and then packaged mechanical, then I can upgrade things. And if I design the buildings in such a way, I can have constant upgradability. So it was really trying to match form and function.
So was that driven primarily then based on speed, or was that because the way you viewed it was it'd pencil out better, or?
So it's delivering on the paradox. It's delivering on the paradox, fastest, lowest cost, and high quality. And it's manufacturing. So I'm going all the way back to my roots at Compass. So I go back to manufacturing at Nortel, and just that's the roots of things. And the
how did you know it would work like that? I mean, what were the concepts? What was?
Well, we built a lot of stuff at Digital, so I got to see what worked and what doesn't work. And like I said, you get to practice. And then we started really small. So the concept with the 1 meg data center was if you can get it right at small scale. And I didn't want to go out into the shark-infested waters and try to do bigger stuff right away. So let me go into secondary markets and try this out. And, Windstream was our first client.
Oh, nice. We're in Texas? Or
Nashville and Raleigh.
And those were, you were doing one meg chunks at that time, or one?
Yeah, 1.2.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we did, we tried out a couple building types on the first two, and then settled on doing precast. If you looked at the Compass evolution, it's all just incremental continuous improvement around a product concept, much like a car. And then there's different versions of when that prototype's available. And then when the network changed, what we did was we took the same kit of parts, and then you can assemble it differently and to bigger scale, but you still keep the same kit of parts. And so, and we've been very fortunate. The power centers we have the same PLC since 2012.
Okay, I was wanting to ask you, like, how much have you evolved? Isn't maybe sometimes the best way to explain it, but like adapted, I guess. So, because when you first started your product line, and then now what you offer, how much of that original stuff is still there, and like how many things have you changed to as the industry evolved, or because there was maybe a blind spot in something that you had originally, and you're like, before, or I see where the market's going. I think if I make these changes now, I could get ahead of it again, or something. Like, how much of that?
Well, one big blind spot was around rooftop units.
Okay.
So in multi-tenant, it's not that big of a deal, but in single tenant, I don't want anything over my roof.
I gotcha.
So we lost a deal to Honda at the time, and that was like the root thing. And
because they wanted stuff on the roof to maximize.
Didn't want it on the roof. Don't want the penetration risk.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we went through that. That was a tough blind spot. That was 2015. And then, just that determination of wait a second, like, unfortunately, being a strong personality, sometimes you get people that tell you what you want to hear instead of what you should hear, type of thing. So, but no, so we made some big shifts at that point in time. That was kind of the reboot of the business.
And that was what were, in addition to taking stuff off the roof and putting it in the yard, was there some changes to like, were you adding more business units, or were you still just focused?
Changed the team, changed our money, made some fundamental changes to things. So, really just take the hard look and do what needs to get done, and then move it forward.
Were there some big trends that you were seeing in the industry at the time where you're like, if we don't, evolve our dice or to think, but like even right now, there's things that, me and my partners sit down and talk about that we wouldn't even see those impacts until the first quarter of next year, but we know that incrementally over time they'll pay dividends if we make those changes now, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I think like the supply chain crisis is a good example, right? A lot of people have procurement strategy. We had a supply chain strategy, and that wasn't necessary in just-in-time world. That's very, very competitively advantageous to us now.
Sure.
So there are things that you do that you just know work in business in different environments. And the key is when you set those strategic anchors and the winds start blowing outside, like, do you just hold on to those anchors or not? You still got to evaluate them every couple of years. But, we do that as a senior team. Every couple of years we'll reevaluate our anchors. But if you use them as guideposts, like they work, and you don't let external events determine things that you don't have a whole lot of them, have some core ones, but hold true to them.
So what are some of the things that you're doing? Well, I feel like I painted with super broad strokes because I was really more focused on some of that Compass stuff, but I was just trying to make sure I squeezed every last drop out of anything that could benefit, or anybody else in the industry that's listening could gain any knowledge from listening. Was there anything else, lessons learned from the original days of digital before you went to this, so that way the way it was originally described was someone's like, it's kind of like digital 2.0. He's just picking up where they left off on certain things, and I'm not saying anything to trivialize what they're doing versus what you're doing, but was it I want to go do something completely different?
It's different, not better.
Okay. So when you did that, you felt like, hey, I'm going to build it and they will come. Like when you have a supply chain challenge, or just in time, not just in time, you invested into something and took a big risk, right? To put yourself in a position where you could hopefully maybe win more than your fair share of opportunities because you positioned well. What are those things that you drew from that allowed you to reposition here to catch a headwind or a first mover advantage on something?
I would say we're a little unique in that we're not market focused, we're customer focused. So we really wanted the business to be focused on a few customers, but then really try to serve them. and try to deliver around that. So that helps. It helps that there's a lot of cross-pollination between those companies and what they try to accomplish. But, if you can, do speed and low cost and high quality and mass customized and relative, profound, we call it profoundly simple, just make it easy. Those are the things we focus on from a market perspective.
So what are the things that inspire you the most about what you're doing right now?
Team and watching the culture work. It's so fun just watching it be, all of our new hires, it's 9 out of 10 are like, why are you here? Well, we're here because of, the culture. People go through the crazy interview process with us. There's like 8, 9, 10 interviews. And the last, 6 to 7 are just, do we think you can adapt to, can you fit the Compass culture?
I gotcha.
And it's, that's the most fun part. I always say I got 3 jobs. I instill the culture in the organization, organize the team, in terms of how the structure looks, and then manage the investors and the board. And I'm not that good at the third one. So,
well, you probably have some strong people on your team that help with that.
Oh yeah.
For where you started at, just you and Curtis, right?
Yeah.
And then where you at now? How many people you all got?
Including the Radix platform, it's probably 160.
I don't even know what those I know you had
Radix IoT, which is it's a IoT management. So it does everything from a solar farm monitoring to a Chick-fil-A to a edge data center.
Really?
Really cool platform. Fred Durler runs that team for us.
Fred.
Yeah.
He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He had Fieldview I forget.
Yeah.
Super smart guy. Give him my best. What about I saw that you hired Tony?
Yeah, Tony's running what we're calling Quantum, which is our edge.
Okay.
So it's a 12 rack, true data center, 2-end data center, which has been our view on where the edge is necessary. And it's an enterprise grade product. And then we offer that on as a service. So
I got you.
Yeah.
What else do you started off with just data centers. It's 2 new products that you have in addition to what you do for your...
Yeah, so one of our other anchors, Any Size, Any Place. So we have different stair step. I'm a James Bond nerd, so
I was wondering where the names
Bond.
came from. Explain to everybody that doesn't know the names.
Yeah, so everything's... it just took off. I don't know what...
It's pretty cool, actually.
Happened. So, but so we've got a Skyfall product, which is Quantum is the smallest one, right, from Quantum of Solace. Skyfall is the 1.1 to 2 meg kind of building size. Thunderballs are kind of 4 to 12 megawatt size. Then we've got the Moonrakers, which are the 30 to 36 megs. We've got the Spectre, which is a 2-story 24 meg. And then we've got a Golden Eye for over in Europe as well. That's kind of a cool one.
So were those your favorite movies?
No, they just were single word ones.
I got you. All right,
but,
that makes sense.
Thunderball's up there though. I'm a big. I love the Sean Connery ones. And so we got a bunch of pop art up at the office from Devon that has a bunch of.
No, I saw
Sean
when I
Connery
went to your
stuff.
conference room the first time. I think that's what all the posters and stuff like that were in that room were, which was pretty cool.
It's been
I think
fun
it's
for
pretty
everybody.
clever. I thought it was originally like a code where no one else was intended to know what those were.
You know what's cool about Bond though is that it's so generational. So everybody has their Bond. I like the Sean Connery Bond. A lot of folks grew up with the Roger Moore Bond or the Daniel Craig Bond or
I like that one. Yeah,
I don't know that anybody's a Pierce Brosnan Bond fan though.
I forgot all about him.
So watching him run was difficult. So
he was like some other. My mom used to watch some TV show that had him as like a nighttime soap opera. I don't know what it was, but all right. So you like over the course of time, you're reinventing yourself every year, every quarter. As the market shifts, you're kind of staying in tune or in cadence with that, or are you trying to time it and get ahead of it?
No, I think we're pretty clear on where our strategy is going to be at for the next couple of years in terms of what we're doing with land banking, land development, and then.
What are you guys doing, or whatever you're comfortable talking about? So you started off in, I think you said Raleigh and Nashville or something, and now you're in how many different markets? And
I should know that off the top of my head, huh? Probably like 18, 17.
And that's like 3, 4, 5 countries, or
1, 2, 3, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So, what else is on your plate? Like what's the next, like, what are you trying to, I'm not trying to
We
get
call it the
into.
rocket ship internally. So
Okay.
I mean, it's a really fun ride right now. We're really trying to both, I mean, our pillars of the business in terms of how we design things, how we deliver them. We call it delivery, not construction, and then how we operate, and trying to deliver across all three of those in a little different fashion. And it's it's fun. It's really fun because our teams. We've got so many smart people on the teams, and watching them all aligned around a formal culture. We have a very formal culture, but aligned around a vision, and watching what they're delivering, the amount of fingerprints that go into the Compass way of doing business every single day from the teams. We have one fun thing. We celebrate failures every quarter on our all hands call. We call it the Wile E. Coyote Award.
Nice.
And you nominate. You can get nominated by your manager. Most people just nominate themselves. And so you nominate yourself for it, and you say, "Look, here, I want to tell everybody, here was my big fail. This is the thing that I messed up." And almost always it's a cultural violation of some sort that could have prevented it. But then you say what you poka-yoka'd, what you put into the system to make sure that can never happen again. And we love talking about, because I mean, every great learning I've ever had in my life is through failure. It's not through success, right? I think the good Lord made shit the best fertilizer for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's so those failures and being good about talking about it and letting people try things and letting people go do new things. It's really fun.
What do you think, like, I don't know how easy it is to codify it in a short narrative, but what are the things that you've learned the most so far since you started Compass?
I would say the thing that's the biggest, and it's our first core conviction. It's humility and pride out. Not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. That everything spawns out of that in our culture, and it's just taking a different lens, checking the ego, but just constant learning, constant seeking out other perspectives. We're a really diverse company, so we start with personality tests, which is the first level of diversity, and we make sure our teams don't have the same personalities. We avoid groupthink.
Interesting.
Then you go to race and gender and everything else. But it's really just seeking out different perspectives, new ways, new things, and preventing our own biases or our own lenses of experience to taint things. And I think watching the power of that has just continued for me just to double down that is the essence, not just in work life, but life. Like, how many things can I learn if I check my ego?
How did you arrive to that that's how you were going to be a CEO, and that's what you were going to make as the core priority, is, culture first, everything takes.
I think the evidence of ego, watching, I think it's having watched ego destroy like a company like Nortel, which doesn't exist. And, you get blind with pride, if you're right, if you have to be right. I mean, how ridiculous is it to say that you're right? What does that really mean? Like, you can be better or worse at something, but what's the right way to build a building? There's no such thing. What's the right way to deliver a proposal? What's the right way to sign a lease? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
So where did you find this, like, temperance and this grace in leadership and management? Was there like, as an example, the reason why I ask is, and I'll share some stories that you are humble about and don't ever talk about. We don't ever waste the opportunity to talk about it when we can. I actually had mentioned this on one of our previous podcasts. When I didn't know you that well, right? When we changed, I left. I worked for one of you. I mean, Shap was one of your proteges, right? So I worked for him and had an amazing experience working at that organization. But there was just a thing in my life where I just felt like I had to go try to do something different. And we went and we started that. And I remember I changed my LinkedIn, and literally, like, within a few hours, I think you called. And it's not as though we knew each other super well, but you're genuinely, sincere person that cares about people. So you're like, "Hey, what's going on? How's it going?" You're like, "Hey, well, why don't you pop up maybe next week and I'll let you talk to the team or something." And you block and tackled, and like, "Look, all I could do is ask him to meet with you. I can't, I'm not going to do anything beyond that." And that's all we could ever ask for. And we had been working for you for just a few months. We started our business in November 1st of 2019. And I think, that time when COVID hit, I had probably 14, 15 people total, but probably like 9 of them are FTEs. And I remember I'm just sitting there, like everyone else, the world's a dumpster fire and everyone's just trying to figure out where they could get toilet paper. And I'm trying to figure out how I could ensure that my team can still travel if they need to travel to support our customers, things like that. And I get this random text message from you. And it's like, hey, man, I know you just started your business. Wanted you to know that we're good. We're solid here. We're not going to not pay our bills. And if you need anything, let me know. And I was like, there's a guy that has a team that's 10 times the size of mine, it sounds like, and all of those customers, and you still had an eye on your partners, your vendors and your supply chain. And I was like, man, that's pretty amazing. It was actually a very humbling thing for me that day because I don't know you that well, so I don't know what kind of leader you are. Obviously, we know what kind of industry thought leader you are, but I didn't know what kind of person leader you are, how what your dynamic was in that sense. And obviously, it leads to productivity in the business, but I didn't understand where you were. But I just thought that was an extremely generous offer, and that was the second time you really helped us because I remember sending a note to my leadership team and going like, guys, you're not going to believe this text I just got, but this guy's not going to let us fail, so we're going to be okay. And I said, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that he is successful with what they do. And we do, every opportunity we can, we talk to people that we do work with and make sure that we remind them of the things that you and your team has done. I mean, Tammy's been amazing. And I'll tell you, it's one of those situations, but it was the second time in like 2 months or 3 months. The first one was, your advice to me was to buy a book called 0 to 1. It was so I bought like 10 copies and I gave it to everyone at the company basically. I'm like, this is the cult that we have to become to be a strong, successful business. And you're like, start with that, 0 to 1. And it was just those little nuggets that you were dropping when you didn't have to, right? And I didn't, sound as though you certainly didn't know us anything. I mean, but I didn't know you well enough to think that you would even care, right? So you were throwing a lot of really cool things over the fence to us that had a huge impact on our own culture. I mean, I don't know if I told you, but there's a pretty amazing lady that works for us, and she's a UT grad too. And we think that she's just one of the best at what she does, right? And Mackenzie, by the way, if she's ever listening. But
she's so awesome. She
is awesome. And I knew that our risk was she's so good if we put her on a team like yours that your culture would outshine our culture. And she'd be like, Kirk, we had a good run, but this is the JV side and this is the varsity side. I'm like, listen, I remember telling her, I'm like, Chris had like 12 years to get to that point. That's not fair. He has a huge head start. Give me a little bit of time to pick up the speed. And she's good because she holds us accountable too. And she has a voice and she'll say whatever she feels. And we listen, obviously. But she's awesome. But I just remember telling her, she was really cool because she sent me a note that was like, it was like, you need to step up your game type of note. But she was like, let me share with you a few things that happen over here that these people do. And I was like, man, that was months afterwards. So that's like the third time I'm still getting a pretty solid dose of some of that stuff that you were pouring out. So that's why I asked, where did you go from becoming where you were building the biggest, most powerful data center company in the world to one of the, as you said, a different one that has a completely different mission or a different purpose, but you focused it sounds like more on this other thing, and then you're watching it swell, right?
Well, look, I mean, I'd love to say that I've been like this my whole life. I haven't,
That's what I'm asking.
A lot of arrogance, a lot of ego over the years. And
where did you get humbled at?
I mean, my parents always tried to instill it in me. I remember my dad always telling me a story, coming in as the FNG, getting airdropped in, and he's supposed to be the sergeant. And they love their other sergeant who, got sent back, and they didn't like this new guy, who's the new guy. And I remember, he would always tell the story that he carried the ammo for the first few days. That's what he did. Just let me pay my dues.
Sure.
And, I think that when you observe a lot of things, when you observe the success of things, when I observe the most successful times for my teams are when my personality, some of it's not intentional, just, I got a big personality, and you don't mean to always dominate. You don't mean to always.
So I think that's the point, right? Is your big ass name, right? So I remember, maybe the second time I saw you were at some conference in Florida, and there was like a line a half hour long to sit down and shake your hand or some shit.
I could have been a rock. I would have been a rock star, and those would have been better groupies. So.
Well, I'll tell you, like Peter Gross used to be able to collect an orbit like that too, right? I mean, he probably still does.
Peter, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Me too. But I'll tell you, like, I remember meeting other people in this space, and like the bigger they were, like the less humble they were, right? And I was thinking, to really be at the top of the hill here, you won't get there as a mercenary. You got to be or as a missionary, maybe. You can only get there as a mercenary. And then I just started seeing, the other side of some of these CEOs, and we get the opportunity to work with some amazing people that are pretty sophisticated under the teeth, but I was stunned to see where that came from. But what I've learned is, in some cases, all of us have pride, and we want to have a lot of confidence in our ability. Mm-hmm. I mean, we live in a day and age in which, there's a lot of younger kids that don't have any confidence, and as a byproduct of that, they have anxiety and depression. Yeah. And here we are in this space. You have a lot of people that are pretty intelligent, and with that comes a great deal of confidence that could obviously be perceived one way or the other. So I didn't know you. So that's why I was like, okay, so maybe some of these guys that are at the top of this hip, maybe they're actually genuinely good people. They're just aren't the most violent ones to get to the top, right? So where was it, not to say you were violent when you were at the other place, but like at some point when you broke out and you had your own thing, you're like, okay, look, I get to set the tone, or I get to set this, this is what, it's not based on what we say we want to do. It's really based on what we're going to tolerate, right? So at some point you said, hey, look, if you want to be a part of this, this is what we'll tolerate. This is what we expect. This is what we tolerate, and everything else is out.
So I got a life coach back in 2006, and that was kind of the start of my journey and it is a journey of,
There you go.
And I mean, I've always been able to use humor, and those that know me well know that I can be super passionate about something, but then, rip on myself in the next sentence or whatever, and self-deprecate Sure. or whatever. But, when I left digital, it was, definitely made me sad. I was kind of like, I was Darth Vader or something like that, type
really?
of thing. But, which are all still friends of mine. So, it was just odd. When you're blazing a trail, you do rub people the wrong way. If you couple that with a personality type like mine, you really rub people the wrong way, but they don't always get to know who you are. And I think those that do know me, know that I'm also the first one to try to apologize when I do cross the line on things. But I think the big thing on the humility side is the C.S. Lewis line of it is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. I mean, that is the essence of it. It's just yes, of course you have an opinion. Why don't you learn everybody else's first?
So to that end, now we're going to bust into some of this tequila, because you were telling me a little bit about it. We're going to talk about this next, but that's why I wanted you to come on, right? So you were one of the first guys I asked to come on, and I know how busy you are, so I stay out of your way as much as I can, but you just said something I think that really dovetails back into what we were talking about. You're like, look, I admire your passion, and with that passion, the knife, it cuts both ways, right? I share that. I'm sure if you talk to people on my team, I could be a mercenary or a missionary, depending on which way they're dealing with me on which element. But like you, I always feel like people that really know me understand my humor. They understand my intent. Salute. Thanks for coming, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they understand, if I engage with someone that doesn't have the context, or they simply don't know me well enough to feel confident that my jokes are jokes versus an attack of some kind.
Yeah.
You don't know, but you tend to have a better, more meaningful relationship where you get more, everybody gets more out of it. If you can trade paint like that and just, have fun, but you only do that with people you know. My goal is to make it to where maybe more people know you. I've had the opportunity to know you more, not more than everybody else, but probably more than most of the industry, just simply because I've known you for longer. So I wanted to open it up so that other people could see the other sides, right? So that's why I was scratching the paint. I'm like, so what was it that where the light went on? And it sounds like
you got to have. I think you have experience and you have fails, right? You learn through failures. You learn through, the amount of assumptions. I think that of where people would be intimidated is the right word for it. Intimidated to come and talk, or intimidated to bring up an idea. a deal's working with me now on I've been tending lately to end a sentence with right as a question mark. Oh, that's not a good phraseology from somebody with my personality.
Oh, because then it could be seen as like a
right,
like a dominating.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I don't mean it that way.
Agree with me.
But but you just got to work on language. I got to work on language. Ironically, I'm not a very good communicator. Like somebody like
suck. I was going to say that. I mean, I didn't want to say that, but I'm joking.
No, I'm serious. In front of the team, I mean, Tammy's an awesome communicator. Unfortunately, AJ does a great job communicating. Jared does a great job communicating. I'll say things, but I'm figuring everybody's keeping up and, in the same room with me. And then, I say 2 sentences when I meant 3 pages worth of material. Ready, break. Let's go.
It's called skipping. I do it too.
So I have on my whiteboard in the office at the top of it, it says vision, then an execution plan, and then it says perfect implementation. And I have a red line through the execution plan. I'm not good at that. I'm good at the vision, and then know how to implement a lot of stuff.
Perfect execution or perfect implementation, like so. Oof.
No, it was a joke. They put the word perfect in, but my team did. But it's basically, I can go from the phrase that we did in our first offsite was, Crosby can be at 30,000 feet or he can be down with the ants, I can do that in the middle of a conversation. And I mean, I've just gotten to experience a lot of things, and I love learning, and I love reading, and I love finding out new things. And do
you find that you do that though? Like it transcends. That's who you are, so it transcends beyond just your work. I mean, you're still like in my family too. Like I've found that I skip there. In my mind, I've thought about it so much that I am just kind of tapping the ball as it's spinning on the tip of my finger, thinking everyone else already saw it.
Yep.
And they're only getting the taps. They didn't understand all the things that went on before that. And I found that I have amazing people, thank God, that'll slow me down and be like, "Go settle down." I think I understand what you were saying, but there's a few pieces in here you skipped right through that are critical.
And that's so important to have people around you that'll do that.
Yeah.
I love people that slow me down. I mean, I'll get beat red face, but I love it. Sometimes I want to move on. There's a few different types of fears around decision making. Right. There's, by the way. Yeah. I told you, Lalo, Eduardo. So, the fear trap that I fall into is the fear of inefficiency. I hate waste. I hate inefficiency. It drives so much of, things that I've done. And, well, sometimes it's okay to be a little less efficient there. You let everybody go through things. I mean, we do this culture workshop at Compass, and where we take any new kind of big idea or project or difficult situation, and you run it through a formal workshop. And the rules of engagement in the workshop are, in the round robin, about what the issues and challenges are, is everybody talks. There's no filter. Everybody gets put everything out on the table.
So
and so you get, for a dominant personality like mine, which wants to go straight to the answer, it's like I have to do it in a formal fashion. Otherwise,
I have to do it in an informal, because and I have to be the last one to talk so that I don't say something that maybe influences what someone else is going to say first. Mm-hmm. I really want to gain their input, so I'll try to always be the last. But what I found was, mine wasn't a formal meeting. I just went and bought like $500 worth of Nerf guns and laid out buckets of Nerf gun bullets on the table. And I said, when people aren't engaging, let them have it.
That's funny.
And I'm like, you just can't shoot them in the face. But if you're sitting there and
hopefully everybody's a good shot. So.
We're talking about something critical, and you see some dope pick up his phone just to make sure because he heard a buzz, and all of a sudden, whoosh. But it was just our informal way of getting everyone to engage and collaborate, because, actually maybe this is something that Shap used to say something to me, that who knows where he learned it from, but it was like, the chorus always sings louder than the soloist. So you don't want to have this room full of talented people that are not singing together, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, the only way to get them engaged was through some sort of humor versus try to set a serious formal tone, because the type of people that I typically hire are misfit toys, right? They need to do something that makes them feel significant. That's the most important thing, right? That's the purpose that they have, that they're contributing to something bigger than themselves. Mm-hmm. The they're not going to be looking to step on their counterparts to try to get a little bit further ahead. They're going to be
Right.
trying to figure out how they can help others around them be ahead. So when you're creating an environment that's going to be ran like a family, you're not going to have. We try to have. I mean, we have to play grown-ups for certain meetings, but for the most part, we try to make it to where people are comfortable so that people can make decisions without fear, right?
Yeah.
Or say things without fear.
And I think it's just really important that not everybody's going to fit in your culture, and that's okay.
I didn't learn that either. That was a nugget that you taught me the other day. I remember I called you about something. I'm like, I could use some input from a CEO with experience type of thing, you know, and I said something, and you almost were giggling at me. You're like, dude, drop the self-indignation or this. I mean, it was like an easy, like swat of a fly type of thing. And I'm like, all amped up all day about something that I'm taking maybe personal and it's just business. You're like, settle down.
Yeah.
Welcome to the,
welcome to the club.
Yeah. You're like, listen, you're going to have people that don't buy into your culture. You're going to have people that don't buy into your system. You're going to have.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean they're not productive. Doesn't mean they're not great resources. You can be an A resource at another place. You're just not an A here.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That was the thing that was probably the hardest is like trying to figure out, like, why would someone want to ever leave here? Why would someone leave and have anything but the most amazing
But that's
things
your ego.
You're right. So, but those are the humbling moments, right? So who do you call? Who's your mentor?
So Raymond Gleason's been my coach for a long time.
Is that your life coach you're talking about?
Yeah, he's still a dear friend. And then I've got a couple guys, Chris.
Does he get in your face sometimes? Does he challenge you? I get in your face, but you know.
Yeah. No, I like people that challenge me. You know, my wife does a good job with it. Buddy Chris McFarland, Master G, CEO. Brian Wick is one of my attorney buddies. I think it's just important. I don't have a lot, you know, but you know, you want to be able to call folks and run through things, and even if however you form opinions, you know, I remember one time I was talking to Chris and difficult point in time in the company, and I said, hey, you ever had one of those days as an entrepreneur when everything that can go wrong goes wrong? Absolutely. You want to talk about it? And he said, I said, well, what do you do? And he says, well, I get my team together and I tell them the situation and I listen to what they all say and I go home, sleep on it, and then I make a decision the next day. I was like, I can't do that with my team.
So then you learned that,
you know, pretty big knife into the stomach type of thing, and you just move forward, you know, but you learn those lessons and you take them and you're like, wait a second, what while I think it's more efficient because people are agreeing with me, it's not more efficient. It's not better for the business. Like it's you know, we're not getting the best of things. And now if you looked at my leadership team, the personality types are across the board, the backgrounds are across the board, you know, and it's awesome. Do
they have the ability to challenge you?
Oh yeah.
Like, do they have to do it in private, or do you have an open
So one of my
forum?
favorite stories to tell when people come on, I still do the initial culture training for every new hire in the company. It's my favorite thing. Yeah, the first hour they got to get with me.
Are they freaked out? Someone's like, why am I sitting talking to this guy?
I don't know. I mean, they've been through so many interviews and this and that have talked
I
about
think it's
the
cool
culture.
because
But it's so fun. I don't want to give it up. The first one. Now, mine doesn't really sink in, right? So we have all these follow-on ones and everything else. But and who knows how good of a teacher I am, but I'm passionate about it.
Sure.
But I always tell a story about humility and pride out. And I was on John Shine. I don't know if you know John.
Yeah.
He's been a long-time salesperson for us. Raymond Hawkins had just started. He was 3 weeks into his job. And we're on a phone call, and John and I are, I've got Raymond in the office. John's on speakerphone, and going back and forth on some deal. And, you know, I've got it in my pig-headed. One thing, I was in the I'm right mode, you know, and I have
no idea what you're talking about.
And I have the whole thing where I'm hanging on to every little thing, not just the things that are important. And so he says to me, so I'm going back and forth arguing with him, and Raymond tells a story. It's hilarious. And he goes, and then Shine said to Crosby, hey, turn your business card over. What's the top line say? Because our 4 core convictions are on the back of the business card. First one's humility and pride out.
Hey, so he caught you.
And I go, and I turn beet red. He said, take a deep breath and go, okay, you're right. Let's move on. And Hawkins tells the story. He's like, oh, I thought I was going to see somebody fired in my 3rd week, you know. But no, I mean, look, if you're not willing to eat it, you know, AJ does a great job with me on I remember we were doing a deal, and I'm in the weeds on the legal, and I slept at a Holiday Inn Express, and I know this is the right way to do it,
sure.
Type of thing. And he's like, so Chris, does it really matter? No. It's just, you have to have people that'll do that. Tammy does a great job slowing me down. Like it's very important.
So, I think one of my favorite stories about something along those lines is another guy that used to work for you, Brian DeRico, right? And I'm a big Brian DeRico fan.
Yeah.
Huge EQ type of guy, right? So he's, in addition to just a big fat brain on other things, like my first time having one-on-one dinner with him, I felt like I was like in class, what I'm saying, learning how to be a better person type of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember coming back and I was telling Stock Losner, who digital alumni, he works for us, and I remember telling him, I go, hey, I finally got to get to know DeRico. And he goes, yeah, the funniest story about DeRico is there was some big bank job in I want to say it's like New York, New Jersey. It's one of the big ones, and DeRico, I guess, had that account, or it was his deal, and he was sitting there, and I don't know who it was above his pay grade was sitting with him talking, and I guess he leaned over. He's like, hey, listen, if I wanted you to talk, I'd tell you, so shut the fuck up. And I was like, so that's what managing up sounds like, versus just managing down, right? So you got to have a decent relationship with whoever you work for if you're going to be able to let them know that they need to stop talking. But just the way that he did it, I was like, that's gangsta. I like that.
It was probably,
no, hey, please.
It was probably me.
Was it you?
Probably.
Well, look.
He was definitely, that was 2 ears and 1 mouth. I used them disproportionately. So.
Yeah, well, thank God I have... so some of the people that have worked for me for multiple companies now. So they've got to see me at my worst, and then at my worst, my very worst and my worst. So, and there's one, both of the partners will be really, one's more subtle than the other when they want to tell me to settle down or when I need to just not get involved. So for you,
we have our phrase. So we did a blind spot session with my ELT, and irony of blind spots is you don't know them, and they feel like they eviscerate you when you get pointed out your blind spots.
Very
right?
humbling,
right?
For sure.
So they should be. It's something that should really. Ooh, geez, that's my blind spot. Of course, if you ask people what their blind spot is, they won't. They'll think that they know it. They're off until you've had third parties tell you.
You need people that like you enough to tell you.
So we have a phrase around the ELT that's called purple goose. So we call each other, we purple goose each other in the middle of a meeting. It's kind of this random phrase to when our blind spots are acting up.
Interesting. So like a code word.
Yeah. It's a good technique for personal relationships too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you bring things right back to the moment when you've had the tough scenario, and you go, I don't want to be back here again. Let's call it something. My son and I have one called golf ball.
And that means timeout.
That just means we're good. We know we're on solid footing. Let's not go down this path anymore.
I think right now your blind spot is your tequila.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, what were we drinking? This
Drinking Lalo, which is shorthand in Spanish for Eduardo, and Eduardo was Don Julio, the grandfather.
It's actually delicious, and it's
super clean, 100% agave, cooked in the clay, so that it doesn't get any preservatives or anything in it. And
how'd you come across this? Who introduced you?
My buddy Brian Casey introduced me to Lalo.
Okay, where's he?
He's a Dallas guy. Runs a company called Westwood Financial.
Gotcha.
But good golfing buddy and buddy. So he introduced me to Lalo, and you can drink a lot of it.
Perfect.
And then this is a Fortaleza Blanco. So Fortaleza is another really clean tequila.
Yeah, so what's the story with this one? How did you find this one?
It's been around for a while. It's just another one. I try to drink the Blancos because I don't like all the stuff in them.
Oh, the other ones are too sweet.
Yeah, and they lead to more hangover. So
I think the amount of tequila I put in me probably leads to more hangover, right? So I I like the tequila that makes it where I don't want to drink too much of it.
Yeah.
So now
So you just drink Cuervo.
so I used to go to the bar and they're like, yeah, what do you have top shelf? And then now I'm like, bring me the just a glass of the piss tequila you have, because I know I won't drink too much.
You can go to Smoky Mezcal.
Oh, well, listen.
There you go.
So obviously, JT, and so he and a couple, like, I did my first podcast with.
By the way, JT and Brandon Floyd, like, killed it. Justin Zanoco, Brandon Floyd killed it for Compass on the first 2 jobs.
Just those 2? They sucked after that? Because that does sound like a JT move.
No, they lived in Raleigh and Frankfurt for the first couple jobs. We built our first 2 jobs in 6 months.
No kidding. So JT used to work. You're saying he used to do things?
Yeah.
He's going to be listening to this, and
he even fell in a. He'll even tell you the story time when he fell in a pit. So
listen. Now you're telling me you don't ever listen to our podcast. So my first podcast was with. I'm sure you knew Laramie Doris when he was, with Cyrus Days and stuff, and then now Yonder, and then JT just moved to Texas. He lives in Austin now.
I know it is.
Yeah. So
he's awesome.
He's great, and I was with him last night. We went and watched Rogan last night. I asked you if you wanted to go, and then we went and listened to was the White Elephant here when you were around, or great blues music, great live.
We used to go to Anton's used to be on Guadalupe when I was here.
Good music, just super loud. Blues music at White Elephant, I think it's called, or Elephant Lodge, or whatever it is. It's fantastic. Yeah. So I think that's his favorite place. In fact, I peeled out at like, I don't know, 1. He's like, I'm going to be here until they kick me out. And I was like, damn.
Nice.
JT. So he and Laramie, who is another one of our, like, I feel like the 3 of us grew up in the industry together. Like, I'm sure you have your peer group.
Mm-hmm.
And there's others. There's a lot of good guys that we kind of were in orbit with when we were at the very junior part of our career, right? And we were just really trying to understand the dialect of the industry, really. And I did the first one with them, and they're going to come do one like at least once a quarter with me. Yeah, and the first hour we did a whole bottle of blends just in the first hour.
That's funny.
It was a good time, but I was taking this back to, you were saying JT and them did the first 2 programs with you because they
were on our program
that was the
early.
genesis
So the
of
start of MPS too.
MPS.
So we had them do the full enclosures, and so Englert and
another awesome guy,
Simon Tusha. Yeah. Simon.
We call him Baby Huey.
Yeah, come on. Why am I forgetting his last name?
I think I am too. It's the tequila.
Yeah, Simon. He's awesome. Kansas State.
He is at like 9 degrees or something like that. He's one of the
smartest people.
Yeah.
So I got to spend a lot of time with Simon because they had their offices on the floor above us.
Oh, MPS
did
in the same building?
Yeah. And it was fun. Those were fun days. But Beltramo and I were really close, and
Mazzetti, obviously.
Yeah, so it was Rosenden's
Mazzetti
been a great
into bird hunting.
Yeah, Rosenden's been a really good partner for us.
Yeah,
really good partner for us.
They, I met JT. I think probably several years ago, a dozen years ago, on a Rosen program with I think Vantage or something like that, and there was just something to where we just had we just kind of clicked, and
yeah.
So he's, you need peers and mentors, and if I'm struggling with certain things, I call him sometimes too, or LD or something like that, because I need people that don't view it like me. I need completely different, I need the optics to be different, and there are, if like guys like LD and JT, they're the funnest guys to go party with. Maybe no one parties harder, but there's no one that works harder either, and they're exceptional at what they do, and they do things so different from me, or they think so much different than me, that I need their perspective. And I know that there's 2 people I trust that will say what I don't want to hear, but they'll tell it to me, because they care enough about me, right? And sometimes they're the last guys I want to ask, but I know that the first ones I should, right? Because at least they'll shoot me straight, and they're not going to tell me what I want to hear.
Right.
And I think that's important to surround yourself with those types of people, even on your LT, right? So for us, I have to make sure I'm always, like, I would love to go do the orientation with our new hires. I just don't want to intimidate any of those people, or we're not a big company like yours, but I don't want people to be like, whoa. Am I in trouble, or am I going to be monitored at this level?
You'll be able to work on that.
It's just
we also use Teams channels a lot, which is fun. And I would also invite you to, I mean, one of the tools I have to use with people is I tell them brainstorm versus decision. Like, cue me when you want to brainstorm.
Interesting. What's that mean? Walk me through
Just so they come in, I want to brainstorm. And cue me into the mode of not talking like I'm making decisions.
Interesting. Are you, so they do that to get themselves challenged by you. They're just using you as a sounding board.
No, they're doing it to help program me. I'm inviting them to help my personality flaws.
Ah, gotcha. All
so
right,
you have license to talk to me and say you'd like to brainstorm right now.
What I think you should do, though, is I think the only way to really make this, the only way to improve that process would be to get a dunk tank and sit in it, and then they have to throw balls at you while they test you.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't work out so well for everybody.
So what do you like? What do you do to like? What do you do to make sure that your tribe isn't overstressed or overtaxed? I mean, what do you do to make sure that they're finding joy in life and they're fulfilled with what they're doing, so they go do more great stuff? What do you do? What's your advice, CEO?
You make them go do stuff. You're taking time off.
Oh, you make them okay.
Go recharge. I got you. I got your back for a period of time.
I will tell you.
But you also have to talk in terms of seasons. It's one of the great lessons in life is just think of things in seasons. Don't let seasons roll into. Don't let summer continue to be summer. Like,
take some
make it a season. Make it a season. Like, yeah, you're gonna have windows in a career where you've got a lot going on. But one of the ways I like to think about it is one of the beautiful truths in life is no matter what is dominating your mind right now, 6 months from now will be different stuff.
Good.
And if you think in terms of seasons, then you can get better perspective. You know, we live in time, not outside of time. But if you can try to reflect back, and we really believe in the power of incremental at Compass and doing a lot of little things, and then go reflect on it. You know, Adil just gave me a presentation of all the stuff that they did in 2021 for design improvements, and it's like, holy cow.
So do you ask for that, or is that unsolicited? They just
No, it's unsolicited.
Interesting.
So, you know, you've got to celebrate. You got to reflect on the wins. Gracie helps out with all of our office events. She's my EA, and like, I mean, it's not things I think of, but that's part of your job because I'm suck at it. Like, and everybody loves Gracie's events, and we do them once a month, and we have some, you know, one time it might be mixing cocktails, another time it's painting pictures, or during COVID, she had comedians on a Zoom, you know. I mean, just cool. How do we connect with people and remember that, you know, this is a job. I mean, it's a part of your life, but it's not your life. Like, yeah. And people are better when they have some balance. But you do go through season. I mean, as a startup business or, you know, very high growth, I think we did over 100% last year. You know, you that does mean you're going to be busy, but are you effective? So it's a big delta between being busy. I love the phrase. Instead, it's when you start finding yourself using the word busy, change the word busy to important. I'm really important at work today. Sure. I was important in this. I was important in that. I was important in this. And I'm important at home because I'm important with this kid stuff. I'm important with all this other stuff. It's like, check your ego.
Or find a synonym for busy. So, no, I'm joking. Like, yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess I could see how I'm busy a lot.
Yeah, and do you really need to be? I mean, you know, is what you're doing necessary? And I mean, I'm a big believer in going slow to go fast. Stopping and thinking before starting prevents so many errors. But in order to stop and think means you stop and you think.
So, like, what are you excited about right now? Right. So, like, what is the next for 2 years of this industry that you are just like, because it's cyclical, right? Like what we do, you know, originally it was probably building the primary, you know, business unit of your business, and then you started adding, you know, other things that you were going to offer your clients. What is like, where do you see the industry? Give us like your crystal ball.
So it's funny. I'm not going to answer with the industry thing because the thing I'm most excited about is watching our cultural ambassadors become the middle management layer. Senior managers really got it, and like watching their direct reports become the true ambassadors of things, because you can take every one of our every one of the roles in the company, if they adhere to the 8 principles, that drive out, I don't need to tell them what to do every day. They can just adhere to, they can literally use those principles to help determine what they're going to do. And when that becomes permeated throughout, 3 levels in the organization, like this thing's going to go forever.
What's the goal then, I guess, for you, not to make yourself insignificant, but like, where do you spend a majority of your time right now? Is it internal or external?
It's mostly internal. It's a lot of how the organizations are set up. We're working on a lot of multiplier type resources. We try not to photocopy our unicorns. We try to, you hire the unicorns. I don't try to photocopy them.
Sure.
How do we make our unicorns more effective? What things can we take off their plate that make them be able to do 10x what they're going to do? So everything for me is an order of magnitude. And
do you find yourself though, like you love being involved in the sales process, so you find yourself in the mix sometimes, or legal? Or
yeah, sometimes. I still have relationships, but I don't sell.
Will they tell you to?
My relationships are at, I'm not, the teams are awesome. Like they do their job better than I can do it. Yeah. But I can help. I can help get a meeting. We talked about, hey, I'll get you into this session, or hey, who should I talk to in this portion of things? Or, hey, here's what I'm seeing. What are you seeing, Mr. Customer? But no, you don't. I don't know. I guess it's a blessing that reputationally, have a pretty good reputation doing what we say we're going to do, and delivering on things if we put our word behind it, and that matters over time. So, I'm hopeful that I enjoy, I spend a lot of time on the finance and investing front, and I spend a lot of time on the organization and culture front, and this is like the most fun time for me. Like, I'm enjoying this more than I've at any point in my career, of having this level of a team, this level of an offering, and just the knowledge to know that, we have culture at the core. We surround it with great talent, and the strategies can change, but like we're just on a rocket ship right now, and it's so fun.
Do you remember the first time? I think first time I came to Dallas to visit you after we launched. We went and had dinner, one of those little places right on the corner from your office, and we were saying something, and I said, "Hey, there's only one thing that I don't think that you guys do a very good job at yet." And it's funny because even that night you wouldn't let me buy, appetizers or some stuff, right? And your team is so busy. I can't even get Tim to sit down and have a beer with us every now and then, right? Obviously he's so busy. He's got a lot going on.
He went to the Masters at least.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Good for him, man. Yeah. I'm glad to see that he's getting that type of thing, because whenever I talk to him, there was one time I think I reached
Tammy forces him to.
Well, that's good for her. That's a testament to her too, though,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because she's another person who we try to never really have to, we try not to hit her up because we're so sensitive to how busy she is. But if you do, that she'll at least at some point reach back out to you. But like you guys, I said, you don't let your partners help you guys back as much as we could, and you're like, hey, man, we don't need any of that, like this for that type of stuff. And I get it. I totally got that.
Yeah.
I remember we had that conversation. I'm like, Chris, you just like to be a good person. You like to make phone calls.
But you work with us a lot now. So we have to have a trust factor for that kind of stuff.
That makes sense.
I don't like, you just want to make sure that that things are done for, it's like our rule on entertainment. Like, we'll go out and do entertainment with a supplier, as for example, one of our strategic partners. But that's after we've done business with them for a long time. And that's for furthering and deepening relationships. It's not for getting business. And we just keep a really bright line as far as that's concerned.
I can understand that. But at the same time, I'm like,
we don't take
only
advantage
get to
of
understand people once you put a little bit of loudmouth soup in front of them. And then you're like, now we can be friends.
100%. 100%.
Last night I had another guy on, and his podcast was focused on, just remember you're always dealing with people. And that's the part I really enjoy most about these podcasts is is I know at some point, hopefully you go back and listen to some of the other ones. There's some people that I get to know that are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But other people should know that too, right? And listen, sometimes though you're not getting all your airtime, but people are always asking you about scalability and sustainability and, you know, all the things that are very prevalently discussed in our space, because those are huge factors that everyone's trying to drive to. There's no doubt. Like, I don't think people don't really even know anymore. They don't even care. They already know who you guys are. They already understand what you guys do enough. Can they do it? Okay, your SLA is going to look the same as everybody else. Not really, but you understand, like, not to over trivialize it or commoditize us in some narrative, but at some point they're doing business with people they know and trust.
Yeah.
Right? And
that's what matters.
The paperwork is...
Some are, some aren't. You know, sometimes it's just procurement. Sometimes it is just a commodity, and that's okay too. Like,
take those deals.
You know, it's okay. I think, you know, at the end of the day, if you had to say what's the main differentiating factor for Compass, it's that everything we do is around the human element.
Meaning what? Like, I don't think people fully understand or appreciate your devotion to diversity. As an example, people don't understand that, and you're not going to open up and talk about it, so I'm going to ask you. Like,
I told you I grew up in that crazy bubble in Plano, right?
Yeah, but saying it was a crazy bubble didn't really tell me exactly why.
It just means that, like, the best ideas, the best fostering of everything comes from diversity of thought, diversity of personality, diversity of... It's hard. People give it lip service. I mean, greenwashing, diversity washing go hand in hand. We don't talk about it because we don't greenwash. I mean, our focus on sustainability is avoidance. You don't get credit for avoidance in this world. You don't get a credit for... I don't want it ever to be about marketing. I don't ever want it to be about third-party perception. I want it to matter to us. Like, it's real for us, and we do this for these reasons, and that's really, really important to me.
There you go. So, like, that's the stuff that's what I'm trying to draw you out a little bit on, is it's hard for you to talk about some of the things that you do, right? And I understand why, because you're a pretty humble person in that sense, where you're like, I'm not doing it to get any credit. And you said something to me once, you're like, that defeats the whole purpose, you know?
It defeats it.
Yeah, so...
I mean, I can sponsor, I can be an advocate, I can make an impact. That's what I'm focused on. Like, How do I, we're doing some things, we're going to be probably the first, we're going to be doing HVO fuel, for example, in generators. Probably going to cost us, close to 2x.
Really?
But we're going to make a difference. And yeah, it's only a little bit. It's funny. We do some things like carbon cure and things like that. And then you'll read an article and it says, oh, that doesn't do enough. And it's like, my attitude towards it is screw that. Like, what are you doing incrementally? What are you doing to make a difference? If we got rid of coal and went to natural gas, how much that would be better for emissions. But natural gas is a dirty word. Well, go make a step. Don't wait for it to all magically happen. Just what can you do today? How can you make a difference? And that incrementalism, that feeds on itself, and you just keep letting it feed on itself, and that's how things happen. But if I want to bring down the price of HVO fuel and I don't start, like, it's not going to come down. Which one do you like better, Fortaleza or Lalo?
I'm going to go with Lalo. It's so much, not that this one's not bad.
Just smoother.
It is. That one is way smoother.
This one's in oak. This one's done in oak. That one's done in the clay.
We'll make sure that we test drive that bottle a few more times. That's another fun part about this podcast is every time I do it, I always ask people, I'm like, what do you drink? And you were simple. You're like tequila or Topo Chico or something like that, right? And I was like, that's easy. Some people are like, I need this bougie beer. I need this or that. But you get to drink what other people drink, and you're like, well, why do you drink that? Like, and everyone has their own reason, but it's just, for me, it's another way to understand why other people do things that they do, not just what they do and how they do, but why they're doing it, which is more fascinating. So, I'll bring it home here in a little bit, because I know you're down here, for other reasons as well. So I don't want to hold you back from any of that stuff.
You talk about having a cult of personality. My daughter, we're down for this thing for her 21st birthday, was on Monday, for the 5th year in a row, right? Because fake IDs. But
sure.
But anyway, so she has her 21st birthday, and She has lots of friend groups. Like she has, so she combines the big personality, but she's kind like my wife, and she's very genuine, like with everybody, and she cares about everybody all the time. And so she has all these friend groups. She was depressed, like not depressed, but was upset about, we didn't know what. And I'm like, hey, are you okay? Because you never know in this day and age, social media and everything else. And she said, no, Dad, I'm fine. She says, but I don't want to have my 21st birthday because if I invite these people, then these other ones can't come, and then I'm going to feel bad, you know. And so I said, oh, well, how about you do a bar tab? And she goes, I don't know, Dad, I don't know. And the next day she texts me. She's like, Dad, I think that's a great idea.
So bar tab is like what?
Just where I pay the bill.
Okay.
Okay. And so she says, it's so funny. She goes, I got a place, you know, Lucille over off,
Like the fried chicken place?
no, it's over off Rainy Street.
Oh, okay, on Rainy. Gotcha.
And so that place, I got this, and I have 135 names, and I think we'll top out at 150. I'm like, how in the hell can you name 135 friends?
She's like, I got twice as many friends now, Dad. And they all
It was 3 times the size of our wedding. I mean, it was hilarious. And
How much is a bar tab for three
I don't want
hours
to
of
talk about
college?
it. I don't want to talk about it because I extended it twice.
Oh, well, you had to be fun, right?
It was a blast. She texted me this morning hungover and was just like, Dad, that was the greatest thing
Good for
ever.
you.
But anyways, it was, you know, it's just one of those deals where it's like, wow.
That's awesome. That's going to be pretty cool. I mean, did your
awesome.
daughter go to UT because you went to UT?
You know, she grew up with a lot of burnt orange, the old game room at the
yeah.
old house. And
Does she spit every time someone says A&M?
no, we don't do that. No, not at all. I mean, you know, we have quite a few Aggies at Compass. The God invented Aggies to work for Longhorns. You know that, right?
I'll tell you this. I live in Austin, and I moved here, and I thought it was the law. You know, you have to be a UT fan, and I did. I got the stickers, and we all had some of that stuff. And then finally, an A&M guy came up to me and he goes, "Hey, listen, what's up with all this? You're not even from here, right? My whole lineage is military. We're not from anywhere, right? So I said, well, look, I live here. It seems like the appropriate thing to do, you know. When in Rome, and he goes, listen, do you know what they call an A&M grad in the state of Texas? I'm like, no. And he goes, boss. And I was like, interesting. And I didn't think anything of it until I was working on some program, and it was like Walker Engineering and like Turner or something, and I'm sparring with the electrical contractor from Walker, and he's an A&M guy. That like everyone in the top 3 chains are all A&M mafia guys because they all wear their rings, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember arguing with one, and one's like, "Why do you think you know that?" And I was like, and I kind of went through my background a little bit. I'm like, "Look, because it's not as hard as you make it sound. Like this is really all it is." And the client was sitting there watching us spar, and finally, he's like, "How do you know that?" I was like, "Well, I was, you know, Navy, submarines, nuke, all these things." And he goes, "Well, why didn't you just say that?" He's like, "The A&M grads don't ever mess with those people, but they're gonna just keep on chipping paint on everybody else."
It's funny.
So I remember coming home, and my wife was saying something once, and she's like, "Do you think our kids will go to UT?" I'm like, I watched some A&M guys plow through some UT guys today, so I'm not sure which school is better right now. I'm not comparing on football. I'm watching.
It's just funny. I just think I think it's funny. The whole
But that's
deal.
cool that she went there.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
Sorority? Did she? I mean, was she getting ready?
Yeah, she's a Zeta.
What's she gonna do?
So she's in civil engineering.
I'm sure you have connections with that.
She's been interning with KFM, a great group out of Dallas. She's now she's gonna. I don't know what she's gonna do, but she's gonna kill it. I'm not worried about it.
Go be the CEO of Compass one day, maybe.
Oh, we don't. We got nepotism rule.
Oh, there you go. So well, I could appreciate that. Well, let me just ask you, just a few more questions.
Yeah.
Like, what do you hope your legacy will be? You know, I know you got a long way in the game still, but like, when it's all said and done, will it be, you being one of the original OGs on the digital side? It's what you pioneered on the Compass side. It's what you did to bring and spearhead a lot of diversity into this space, which ultimately has a long-term benefit in everything that we're doing. What is it that you want people to remember?
You know what? I just think it's What do I want people to remember?
You
Good
can
question.
come back on
No, that's a
podcast
good
too and
question.
talk about it.
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it's a focus on some legacy. Does the brand survive? Is it real? Like, does it make it? I mean, how we make lives better, and there's nothing more rewarding than seeing, all the success of the people that used to work for me at Digital, watching them all be successful.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not like I did it, but like it's just you're part of that whole legacy.
So think
it's
about
legacy.
all the people that you built, right? That's what I was trying to say earlier, but I was trying to find a way to not say it in a way that was undermining the accomplishments of these other people that have gone on after
They've killed it, and,
Yeah,
and it's so fun. That is so, like, of the things that give me enjoyment, it's watching success of the teams. It's, I tell people I get all of my joy out of watching the teams do something, not the things that I do. There's just to know, hey, go take that hill, and they go take the hill. Like, that's fun. I mean, that's
awesome.
That's fun.
So what do you tell people? Last question is I always ask people this because it's funny to see how they struggle with this question too. But when you tell people, hey, what industry are you in? Like when I asked Peter Gross a question, I'm like, what do you tell people you do? It's like, I just tell them I'm an engineer. No one cares about that. So it's never,
This is the easy one.
So when people are like, you're in the data center industry, what do you say?
I make power outlets for a living.
You make what?
Power outlets for a living.
Interesting. I think you're going to have to step your game up. That's your blind spot right there. You're going to have to get better than that. Come on, man. You're the CEO of Compass.
You just self-deprecate a little bit.
You got to figure it out. Like, there's got to be someone that nails it. And then we'll be like, all right, well, that's what we're all going to say now. Once you get the whole... Because I don't think people understand or appreciate
So our purpose
the impact that we have
our
as an
purpose
industry.
as a business, making lives better by providing our customers a secure place to plug in wherever they grow. That's why Compass exists, besides making money, is to do that. And so, we're an asset-based business. We're really customer-focused. Making lives better has a whole lot of implications, both for our employees, for our partners, for our,
Sure.
Keeping people safe, keeping them working. It's fun. I mean, and then just continuing to wherever they grow.
You still having fun at least?
Oh, I'm having a blast. I've never had more fun in my career than right now.
Well, that's awesome. What will be even more fun is this year when you come down to DCAC Live in September.
So September? Okay, I can block it out.
Hey, listen,
I can block it
you've
out.
said that for the last 6 years.
All right, tell me the date and I'll put it in the phone right now. Yes, that's the one to do it with.
I'm done talking to you about this stuff because
I
you're blowing
agree.
me off again. So, but listen, Chris, I've wanted you to come on since we started this.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for everything you've done, not for the opportunities that you've given our team to kind of grow with your team. And we get to work with Tammy and Tim and a lot of the other folks that are there that are fantastic. It's, there's times where you just gave me advice when I probably didn't quite deserve it, but I definitely needed it.
But just pay it forward to the other entrepreneurs.
I do my best.
Other entrepreneurs have helped me.
Sure.
You learn those hard things and you just pay them forward, and that's the way it works.
Listen, one of my partners the other day, Anthony, on our team was like, remember that book that Chris gave us? Maybe we should have everyone in the company now read it. And that was just like last week, right? So thank you for all the, when shit was hitting the fan and COVID, the world was on fire and you had to deal with your own team and your own customers. It meant a lot that you reached out to us to make sure that we were okay and that we had you in our, in our corner. And we've silently, under the waterline, have been in your corner the whole time.
Yeah.
As well. I hope you know that. And then there's other times where you, like even the time where I called you, a month ago, all hyped up about something. You're like, listen, verbally slapped me a little bit and then giggled a little bit because I remember all that. Because I was like, it's good that I could call him and he could do that, and I don't feel like an idiot still, But
no, it's funny.
But you're right. I needed to hear that.
Well,
right?
I went through the same thing.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But I'm learning how humbling it is to sit in this role sometimes. But as long as I keep surrounding myself with people that are all 10 times smarter than me, I think in spite of myself, I'll be okay.
Works pretty good.
Yeah. Well, listen, Chris, thanks for making the time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I hope we get to do this again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kirk.
You got it, man. Thanks.